As you saw, we're doing the booktube newbie tag today. I've never really introduced myself in any of the online bookish spaces that I've been a part of. Mainly one, because I feel like I'm really bad at introducing myself. I get slightly anxious when I talk about myself for too long of a time, which makes me feel like I'm doing a bad job at introducing myself, but that is probably all just in my head. And two, I have the tendency to ramble and over-explain things quite a lot, so I feel like this is in danger of becoming very long very quickly. But I really wanted to introduce myself on here because I'm really hoping that this will become my main book discussion content avenue, and I figured if I was hoping for that, I needed to introduce myself. So we're giving it a shot. All right, question number 1. Why did you start this channel? This kind of is a double-sided question for me because I have two pieces of my content that I typically create. The first is my reading journal, which I love with my whole heart. I actually started creating online content in the route of journaling. First, I used to bullet journal way back when in college, and when I graduated in 2020, so I was increasing my reading quite a lot then because I had a bunch of free time now because I wasn't in school anymore, and also it was the height of quarantine. Everyone was staying at home, and so I had a lot of extra time to read then as well. But I didn't really need my bullet journal as much because I wasn't in school anymore and I didn't really know what I wanted out of that. So I kind of transitioned that love and passion I had for bullet journaling into a reading journal while I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted my bullet journal to be and whether I even wanted to do bullet journaling anymore. But for the reading journal side of things, I really love sharing my reading journal just in general. I love inspiring creativity in others. But one thing that I've noticed, especially here, a lot of the creators that I really enjoy watching their book journaling content from a journaling perspective, because I really like their styles and stuff, they read a lot of books by authors that I consider to be very problematic and I don't want to promote and I don't think should be promoted. And they don't read very diversely, with the exception of maybe a couple of the people that I watch regularly. They read pretty much straight white authors and straight white books, and I don't do that. I'm someone that's very focused on reading diversely, and it always made me a little bit sad that I couldn't find anyone to regularly consume that kind of content with that was reading diversely. So I figured if I feel that there is a space to be filled, I should fill it. So that's number 1. Why I started this channel was for the journaling content. To have a person that was posting regular reading journal content that was focused on reading diversely and sharing that. So like I said, that's part 1 of that question. Part 2, for the more book side of things, I started making book content and not just my reading journal about a year ago on TikTok, and I liked it at the beginning, but the longer I was there, the more I would have ideas that I felt like I had to cut back on quite a bit to make them fit within the time constraint and the attention span of the typical user. I had a lot of ideas that I felt were really cool, but I had to squish them down a lot to fit in that time span, or I had to dedicate to making them a series, which meant I had to film multiple times across multiple weeks to make that regular content and series. So I, in September-ish, started toying with the idea of starting a booktube channel and, being able to share more of those long-form content ideas I had without having to stifle any of those ideas. And so I started toying around with it then, but then I was nervous about all of the aesthetic aspects of booktube. I feel like everyone that posts on booktube is always very articulate and very well thought out and has kind of scripted stuff, and it's very put together, and everyone has nice equipment and all of this stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. I don't want to go out and buy a bunch of equipment, but I also feel like I need all of that to post. But then I started not caring as much more and more if it was so planned out, and that I could just start it and get a feel for it. And if I really loved it, I could start doing all of those things that I was seeing and thought were a barrier for entry. And I don't think they really are. It was just something in my head that was telling me that I couldn't do it, but I've overcome it, so we're here now. And those are the two main reasons that I'm starting this channel. Question 2 is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? I feel like I partially answered this in question 1. Again, this is kind of like a 2-part question since I have the 2 areas of my content creation. But number 1, reading journal, I'm bringing some diversity to that, so that people who regularly like to watch and consume reading journal content can get more diverse recommendations that are not from people that are problematic. And I would love to bring that into the community, and that's something new that I'm bringing to BookTube from what I've seen. Part 2 of the question for my bookish content. I personally am someone that likes to read from a very wide variety of genres. I mainly read fantasy, sci-fi, romance, and horror, but I read from quite a large variety of genres, and something that I really enjoy doing is when I find a new genre, I like to bring people into that genre. I really love encouraging people to diversify the genres that they're reading, and I feel like since I read from so many genres, I am pretty uniquely equipped to help aid people into exploring new genres. And that's just something that I really enjoy. I like recommending videos that are a good entry point into genres based on what else you kind of like. That's something that I really love doing just in general. So I think that's another thing that I can bring to BookTube, is just helping people explore new genres and new things. 3, what are you excited most about on this new channel? I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot with these questions, but I'm going to stop answering for the reading journal stuff because I feel like I've kind of answered that all the way through, and it doesn't really have anything else to it besides what I've said. But as far as the bookish creation, I'm really excited to just have more time and space to talk about the things that I love and the aspects of book that I love, and recommend books in a longer form and everything like that. Like I said, I've been creating book content on TikTok for about a year, and I just have felt stifled by that at a lot of times, and I'm just really, really excited to have more space and opportunity to share more of who I am and more of why I love reading, and have all of the time and space I want to talk about those things. Question number 4, why do you love reading? I think this is a kind of generic answer, but I really just love exploring what books have to offer. In pretty much all the books I read, I just love exploring other people's perspectives, and the authors that are writing these books have all of these unique and interesting perspectives and themes and everything to bring to the conversation. And I love exploring the world that these people create, these authors create. And I also love learning about our world through books. I really just love exploring any world through someone else's eyes, and I think that's a really big part of why I love books and reading. Question 5, what book or series got you into reading? I'm going to answer this in 2 parts because I feel like most people, I started reading a lot when I was a kid. I read a lot when I was a kid, but then it kind of had a little bit of a tapering off. I don't think I had as much of a break as a lot of people seem to have, but I did stop reading as much for fun in high school just because I was so busy. I did a lot of extracurriculars in high school, and I was in like all AP classes. So I just didn't have enough time to read for fun in high school. But then a couple years into college, I think my second year of college, I started getting back into reading. It wasn't anywhere near as much as when I was a kid because I still was pretty busy, but I still was reading more for fun in college. And so I only had a shorter break, and I started reading again before a lot of people returned to reading. But when I was a kid, what got me into reading was Nancy Drew. I had this really huge collection of Nancy Drew books that were from my mom. I have like almost the entire original 55 book set. And And so I would just like read random books throughout that series, and that's really what got me into reading. And so that's what I credit with being my like origination childhood reading, my obsession with reading as a kid. And then when I was an adult, the series that really got me back into reading as an adult in college was Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. So that's what got me back into reading as an adult and where I am now. 6 is, what question would you ask your favorite booktubers? And I guess, I don't know that I have any like super specific questions that I would ask people. I guess just like, how do you keep up with the consistency of this? That's what I'm, I think, most worried about, which is a different question I guess I'll talk more about during it then. But the thing I'm most worried about is like running out of steam for creating long form content or running out of ideas. So just like, how do you keep consistent with it when you're feeling burned out of it, I guess, would be my biggest, broadest question for favorite booktubers. All right, 7, which is what I was alluding to, is what challenges do you think will come with starting a booktube? Basically, I'm summarizing. And again, I think my biggest fear and nervousness of this is just that like, I have all of these ideas that I've kind of accumulated from not being able to share them in the shorter form. So I have all of these ideas that I'm really excited about in the near future, but I'm worried that I'm going to like run out of steam or run out of ideas the longer that I do this. And so that's what I think will be the most challenging, is just like continuously coming up with new ideas. But I also think that just the way that I have discussions and the way that I read is generally what gives me ideas in the first place. So I don't know that I'm too super worried about it, because I feel like it's kind of a cyclical thing. Like, your reading gives you ideas for your creation, and then when you're consuming other people's content, you're getting more reading. And so it's kind of a cyclical thing. So I am nervous and afraid, I guess, fearful about it, but I'm also hopeful that it won't be an issue at all. 8 is, when did you start reading? I kind of answered this in the what book or series got you into reading, but I read a lot as a kid and then took my little break in high school, the first year of college, and then got back into reading in college and have been reading very consistently ever since. 9, where do you read? I will read pretty much anywhere in my house. I'm in here right now is my office, and I have like, my desk is right across from me, and then next to me over here I have a reading chair. So sometimes I'll read in the reading chair, sometimes I'll read at the desk, because my cat really loves my reading chair, so sometimes she'll steal it from me. I will read in my bedroom. If I read in my bedroom, I'll put like a read with me thing on the TV. Pretty much anywhere in my house. My husband also has an office, and he has a couch in his office, and I'll read there sometimes. I'm not very particular about reading. I can read pretty much anywhere if I have some music and headphones, which I always have, so I can read pretty much anywhere. 10. What kind of books do you like to read? I kind of answered this earlier as well, but I mainly read fantasy, sci-fi, romance, and horror, and then I also pretty frequently dip my toe into literary fiction. That is my 4th most read genre of all time. That's kind of the 4 that I regularly cycle through. But I very frequently also venture into thrillers and mysteries. I venture into classics sometimes. I pretty frequently read graphic novels. I will venture into that pretty frequently. I read across a lot of different genres, and I like reading a lot of different books. I guess the main thing that I'll say here is I really like to read diversely. It's one of my really big things that I keep track of and focus on. Is to really make sure that I'm reading from people who don't look like me and have different experiences than me. And that's also the kind of books that I typically really love and try to promote as well. So that's what I like to read. 11, which is only sometimes done, is what does your book collection look like? And you can see most of it behind me if you'd really love to see more of it. I did very recently reorganize all of my bookshelves, and I have like a vlog of that, so you can see literally my entire book collection there. I do have like a handful of books that are still at my mom's house that are books that I read either as a kid, and just like my whole Nancy Drew collection is there still because when I was moving, I did not have the space to take 55 books with me. And then I have like a handful of other books that I read right when I started getting back into reading. But besides that, my pretty much entire collection is in that reorganization video, aside from like a few special editions and stuff that don't live in the bookshelves behind me. But this is pretty much my entire collection behind me. And that is everything. I don't think it got too long. I'm sitting at almost 19 minutes on my timer, but some of that is definitely getting cut out, so I didn't ramble too much, which is very good. I was nervous about that. Thanks for hanging out while I introduce myself, and hopefully you stick around for some of my other stuff.